Big Ten media disrespected Maryland again.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day on this nice Tuesday. I hope everyone has had a good start to the week, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus bet daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long, so visit FanDuel.com to get started. Big Ten media is disrespecting the Maryland Terrapins per usual. So a bunch of people have started to come out with their Big Ten preseason polls and where does Maryland place in them and where compared to the other teams. And I think Maryland football, again, is way too low. And this is something that I feel like we say year after year. People don't really respect us as a football program. We're more up and coming. We're more new. We're more of a modern feel with this new Coach Loxley era. It's going to take some getting used to for the media that Maryland football is actually in a pretty good spot. By no means I'm saying that we're on the top of the conference, but I think there's a couple teams ahead of us that I'm like, really? They're ahead of us in the rankings? And I just don't think that some of these teams should be ahead of us. But I do have to say, they have done a better job. There are a bunch of teams below us that I thought maybe these teams might be ahead of us going into it before I looked at it, but they didn't end up being ahead of us. So when we look at the preseason Big Ten, I looked at a bunch of different people lists, and a lot of people have very similar lists. They're all about the same, to be honest. There's not too much too much of a difference in any of these lists. But when I look at it and I'm looking at one and it says Maryland at 11, behind us they have Michigan State at 12, Minnesota at 13, UCLA at 14, Illinois at 15, Indiana at 16, Northwestern at 17. And I completely agree with that. I think all those teams should be behind us. I think that we deserve to be ahead of all of those teams. But ahead of us is interesting. And this is where I start to say, I just don't know with what we've accomplished and what we have done. Should these teams be ahead of us? And I could argue pretty high up onto this list about teams that are ahead of us. It stops. There's the top 5 in the Big Ten now that where it stops, and it's like, okay, those are clearly the first 5. But 6 to 11, where Maryland is ranked at 11, I could argue for really any of those spots. And I can make pretty simplistic arguments that Maryland should be ahead of some of these schools. And so at number 10 is Rutgers, which is really interesting. People are on Rutgers. A lot of people are buying the Rutgers hype, it seems like, and I'm certainly not. I know their 2025 recruiting class is special. I don't know what they're doing over there at Rutgers to get a class like that. And I know they're excited because they have some returners that are some really good players, but I don't see why they're ahead of us. And here's a couple reasons why I'm just not understanding it. Last year, we beat Rutgers. We beat Rutgers pretty easily. And I know you're going to say it's a new year, new personnel, new all this different things. But at the end of the day, we beat Rutgers pretty easily last year. We dominated Rutgers, and the team's a little bit different for sure. They have some new players, some new transfers, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But we crushed Rutgers last year, 42-24. And I know our team's different as well, but I just can't put Rutgers ahead of us right now. I just can't do it. And I know what you're going to say. They have one of the best running backs in the country in the Kyle Minyunga guy, who's a really good player that rushed pretty well against us. 20 carries for 118 yards when they played us. And they have some good players that are returning on their defense that look to be really good players. They have their left tackle coming back in Hall and Pierce. One of their corners that I was talking about, this kid Robert Longerbeam is a really good player as well. And so I'm looking at Rutgers. I'm saying, yeah, they have some good returners, but they do get a new quarterback, which is supposed to be an upgrade from Gavin Wimsatt, who last year he had some flashes, whatever. We don't have to talk about him too much. He was But their upgrade at quarterback, yeah, he looks to be better than Gavin, and his nickname's like the Greek Rifle or something. It's something like that. And so, but I'm looking at his stats. I'm saying this kid's not that much of an upgrade. Like, am I missing something? Why is why is Rutgers ahead of us? Because I think we have similar rosters. I would put Maryland's a little bit in front of Rutgers, but I think we have a similar type of roster in terms of talent. So then I shade towards the quarterback position. I'm saying they got this kid, and I'm like, okay, he completes 50. He's a transfer from Minnesota. Like I said, his name's Ethan before I get into some of the statistics, but I'm looking at him saying he completes 53.1% of his throws last year at Minnesota. He passed for 1,838 yards in the games that he played, 14 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. That's not something where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's nothing to write home about. And so I don't look at him as some type of guy that's going to come in there and be like, yeah, now they should be higher than Maryland. I just don't see that. I think he has similar production as MJ Morse, to be completely honest. And so I'm looking at how we have beaten them pretty good the last couple of years. And I'm looking at our receiving core coming back. I think it's one of the best in the Big Ten. Sure, Kyle Young is one of the best running backs in the entire country, but Roman Hemby is really good too. And they have good players on their defense, but so do we. And I really look at it and I say, is the Rutgers team that much improved? I can't put Rutgers ahead of us. I just couldn't do it. I just think that's a little bit disrespectful from the Big Ten media to put Rutgers ahead of us in this situation. And then I move up to Nebraska. The Nebraska hype is also at an all-time high. I keep looking at the Nebraska stuff, and I'm like, man, like, why are they picked to finish so high? I know they've gotten some transfers. I know they have some really good players that they've recruited, including their quarterback, but still, I can't get on this Nebraska wave that they're higher than us. They're higher than Rutgers. I have to see it for me. I know the Dylan Raiola kid went off in the spring game. I know he's supposed to be number one quarterback, number one player in that class, one of the best players in that 2024 class. I know that. I know he's supposed to come in and lead Nebraska to where they haven't been. And I know they got some guys, and I know they have a really good coach, and I know that Nebraska is a good team. I know Coach Rule's a good coach for sure in terms of college, maybe not on the NFL level, but in terms of college football, he's a good coach. But why is Nebraska ranked 2 spots ahead of us? Freshman quarterback. I know Dylan Raiola is supposed to be a really good player, but you're starting a freshman. He's due to struggle. I don't care how talented the kid is. All freshman quarterbacks are going to struggle. And it's not like he has some roster in front of him that's like, there's no, like, all you have to do is be a decent type of player. Just make the right reads. You don't have to do anything too special. Just go where the ball's supposed to go. Like, I'm not looking at this guy as like, sometimes freshmen come in, they just come in the right situation. And it's like they come into some of the top teams, and it's like they're going to play well. I don't look at Dylan Raiola as like this Nebraska team's perfect and everything's going to go well. And he just has to come in and play just solid football. Does not do anything too special, just has to take care of the ball. I don't look at that. He's going to have to make some plays if they want to win games. And same thing with Rutgers. Nebraska was not that good last year. We finished in front of them in the Big Ten. We were better than them. In conference, they were 3-6, and their schedule on their side of the Big Ten was easier than us. And I just look at it and I say, I can't put Nebraska ahead of us. I can't say Nebraska is better than us right now. I can't. I know last year we played awful. We played awful against Nebraska on the offensive side of the ball, and we still ended up winning. I know there's an upgrade at quarterback, but I can't put Nebraska ahead of us. I put Maryland in front of Nebraska. I would put them in front of I would put them in front of Rutgers as well. But that's skipping over Washington. Washington's new to the Big Ten, and it's interesting where people lie in the Big Ten in terms of the new teams like Washington, like UCLA that's behind us, like the top 5, USC and Oregon are in the top 5 in terms of the preseason Big Ten. But I'm looking at Washington and I'm saying, okay, they have a really interesting type of team. They lost their coach to Alabama, so I'm looking at it. Lost coach to Alabama. They lost their quarterback, Michael Penix. They lost Rome Odunze. They're one of the best receivers in the country to go the Bears. They had one of the best offensive lines in the country, but they lose a lot of those guys. They lose another receiver. Their defense wasn't anything special to begin with. I'm looking at Washington. I'm saying, yeah, I understand why you put them in front of us, but still, it's like a little fishy. It's like they lose a lot of people. New head coach. Coach goes to Bama. First-round quarterback drafted. First-round receiver. Second-round receiver. Lose some people in the offensive line that's supposed to be special. I'm looking at Washington, and I'm even saying, how good are they going to be? And I know you're probably looking at Maryland, and you're saying, we lost our quarterback. We lost players up front, and we did. But at the end of the day, we beat Rutgers last year handily. We beat Nebraska last year after playing horrible on offense. And so, yeah, if you believe that Dylan Raiola and the transfer from Minnesota to Rutgers is going to really bring them that much ahead of us, and if you believe that MJ Morse isn't going to be good at all, I think MJ Morse is going to be pretty comparable to the new quarterback for Rutgers. I think he's going to be pretty comparable to Athan. I don't know how to say his last name. I don't want to try it. So I think he's going to be pretty comparable to Athan, who just transferred over. It's a very similar stats. And I think Washington loses just about everything, it seems like. And they're going to have to go through maybe a culture shock in year one where things are different. They lost a ton of players last year. They lost their best corner, too, They lost their best corner, too. So I'm looking at them saying, I don't know. I feel like Maryland's disrespected. I feel like we're better than preseason 11th in the country, or in the Big Ten, excuse me. I just think we're better than that. Could it end up going the other way? And we look back at it and we're saying Maryland finished even lower than 11th in the Big Ten? Yeah, we absolutely could. But I think that when we look at it and we look at where they have us rated in terms of these Big Ten preseason rankings, Nebraska, Washington, Rutgers, I don't know. I think it's a little bit disrespectful to say all those teams are ahead of us. We look at Wisconsin, okay, it's like they get Tyler Van Dyke from Miami, who he wasn't even good last year. He didn't play that well last year. Iowa, they can't score a point. They're 6. So I'm looking at it, I'm saying, I can't just say Maryland is ahead of everybody and I just say that it's disrespectful, but just the way we have played, the way we have finished the last couple of years, how we've been as a program, I think the Big Ten media is late to adjust to the Maryland Terrapins. I'm going to give you 3 players on the defense side of the ball that must play well for Maryland to be successful this year. I will tell you about that after this ad from FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, and I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. There are 3 players on Maryland's defense that I think have to play well for Maryland to be successful on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to give you them in order. Here's what I think. These 3 players have to play well. So number 3, I think I'm starting up front on the defensive side of the ball. It's on each phase on the defense, I think, have to play well. Number 3, Jordan Phillips has to play well next year for Maryland to be successful on defense. I think Maryland's going to have to stop the run this year. I think our passing defense could be kind of suspect at times next year with the new players in the secondary and a lot of new faces in that cornerback room, all new faces in that cornerback room. And I'm looking at it, I'm saying Jordan Phillips, I think, is one of the most underrated, one of the better players in the entire Big Ten, but on the defense side of the ball and specifically at defensive tackle. And I'm looking at Jordan Phillips, so I'm saying he has to be good this year for us to be successful. He has to play at a high level for us to be a good defense. First of all, he's our best run stopper by far. He's awesome against the run. He plugs up holes, and if Maryland's a good run stopping team, it's going to start with him. And I think we have to be a successful defense because, like I said, I don't think we're going to be as good stopping the pass. So I think Jordan Phillips has to be good in front with stopping the run, helping stopping the run. And I also think he has to create a little bit of pass rush. We saw him dominate the spring game. And I think he's a guy that we need a couple players on the defense with some of the inexperience. We need some guys to be really high-level players and to take the next step. And Jordan Phillips' next step, I think, is like a third-team All-Big Ten selection or a second-team All-Big Ten selection. That's his next step as a player. And if we want to be successful this year, it's going to be a lot of our defensive line. But I'm going to focus on Jordan Phillips, and I think he has to be really good. I think he's the number one key in stopping the run. He's also one of our best pass rushers from the interior. So I think that when I'm looking at our team, I'm looking at our defense overall, he has to play well for our defense to be successful. Next, Ruben Hippolyte. I think number 2, it has to be Ruben. Ruben was really good last year. Even I didn't realize how good he was last year, but he was a really good player last year. And I'm looking at him at the linebacker spot, which is thinner now than we originally thought it would be. And with no Jason Barham to create a lot of these big plays and a lot of these special plays, Ruben Hippolyte has to be good for our defense to play well. He is crucial to our defense. He's one of our best players last year on our team, and he decided to come back when he didn't have to. But him in the middle of our defense, first of all, he's a leader. He's going to be making sure everyone's in the right spot. So in terms of those type of things, in terms of the schemes and everyone being in the right spot and the defense playing the right way and just making sure everything has cohesion and everything, Ruben Hippolyte has the guy for that. And he's going to start with that in terms of leadership in the middle of our defense. Linebackers usually the leader, but he also has got to create some plays at the linebacker spot where we are thin. So he'll probably be playing more than we originally thought. Like I've talked about on this podcast, Maryland loves to rotate a lot of different guys in at different positions, whether it's on the line, on the defensive line, whether it's in the linebacker room. Maryland likes those two position groups, especially. They like to play different guys. Safeties, they usually keep it the same. Corners in the big game, they usually keep it the 2 starters. But in terms of the linebacker, in terms of the defense line, they like to play different guys. But I don't know if we have quite the depth to play a lot of different guys. So I'm looking at Ruben Hippolyte, and I'm saying he has to be good this year in the linebacker room because we don't have a bunch of guys behind him. And he's also already one of our better players. So we need him to play well because if he takes a step back, he was third team All Big Ten last year. If he takes a step back, then we're just not going to be in a good spot. We're not going to be as good of a spot as I have wanted to be because we won't have a playmaker in the middle of our defense. And last year we had 2 in Barham and Ruben Hippolyte. And Caleb Wheatland next to him, he's more of just like he's going to be in the right spots. He's going to play just the way he's supposed to, but he's not going to make a lot of big-time flashy plays. And so to make some of those flashy plays, tackles for loss, maybe a sack on a blitz, an interception, those type of things, we're going to need Ruben Hippolyte. And then in the back end, Dante Trader, because our secondary is definitely suspect in the cornerback room. And I look to the safeties, both Dante and Glendon, but specifically Dante, who's one of the most experienced, best players on the defense that's looking to take another step up. And I thought Dante had some really good games, specifically against Ohio State. I thought he was really good against Ohio State. And so I'm looking at Dante and I'm saying, Dante has to be good on our defense. If Dante isn't good, then our defense isn't going to be right because our corners might need some help, and he's going to have to be in the right spot. There can't be a play where it's cover. It might have to be where we're in cover one, let's say cover one man, and let's say Perry Fisher or one of our corners get beat. And I'm saying that Dante has to be able to cover a lot of ground and make a play he's not supposed to make because our corners are inexperienced. Or he's got to make a game-changing interception or whatever it may be. But Dante's one of our best players, and I think he has to play like it. And he's made special plays in the past, and we're going to continue to make him like that. Dante, Phillips, and Ruben Hippolyte. I think those three are crucial to our defense playing well, and I think they have to play well. Other players don't have to play well for our defense to play successful, and not everyone's going to have a great year. That's just not the way it goes. But those guys, I think, have to play well. What are Maryland Terrapins' chances at Blake Woodby, the 4-star corner? I will talk about that right now. I think we are missing out on Blake Woodby. I think we're going to miss out on him. It looks like he's going to Auburn. It just does. It stinks because I thought he's a guy that could take our 2025 class out of this world, and it just could be like, oh my gosh, Maryland's 2025 class is just so special. We have guys everywhere. We have a corner, the 4-star corner, a 4-star quarterback, a 4-star running back, a 4-star lineman. Like, I thought it had a chance to be really cool in that cornerback room, but we've recruited corners maybe better than any other position. So it's not like the end of the world by any means that we're going to miss out on Blake Woodby. Let me tell you guys about Blake Woodby. I know a lot of you guys know him. Originally was committed to Ohio State. He's a corner. He goes to St. Francis Academy, which you guys all know, powerhouse in Baltimore, one of the best high schools in the country for football. The powerhouse, they just produce player after player. A ton of good players come out of that program, but he is ranked really highly, ranked on 247, ranked 129th nationally, the 16th ranked corner, and number 3 in the state of Maryland. Composite ratings have him basically the same, a little bit higher, but yeah, one of the best players in Maryland. It looks like it's between Oregon, Auburn, and Maryland, but like realistically, everybody has him heavily projected to go to Auburn, and we've been getting used to getting all of her guys, I feel like, that we've really wanted, but it does look like we're going to miss out on Blake Woodby, which does stink because I thought that we had 3 or 4, if we got him, 3 or 4 different corners that I feel like could have been like really good in the Big Ten. When I'm talking about Jet White, when I'm talking about Braden Lee, Blake Woodby, if those guys were paired together over the next couple of years, we could have had something special in the back end. But there's still plenty of really good players in that room. You never know what can happen in the portal as well. And then also, I do want to say this. I would be on the lookout for Coach Loxley to maybe flip one of these 4-star DMV guys later on. I would not be surprised because one thing's for sure, we have seen Coach Loxley able to flip a lot of different people at a lot of different times, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Blake Woodby got flipped in some time in the future before he signs. I would not be surprised. He's a local kid. We could offer him to play right away, and Auburn's recruited a really high level. Auburn's becoming a better and better program. They're recruiting at a high level. I feel like I keep seeing guys are going to Auburn, even though they haven't been like anything crazy the last couple of years. It's not going to be easy to get in and play at Auburn. I know he's one of the best players in the country, Blake Woodby is, and I know that a lot of schools want him. But I think it's important to know that I think he could be a guy that we potentially flip down the road. I could be completely wrong about that. He could just be set on Auburn, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of these DMV guys we flip down the road. But I guess it's not over yet. He hasn't signed. I don't know when he should be signing soon, but I don't know exactly. But he's a freak of an athlete. He says he ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at St. Francis Academy's pro day. And so he's a guy that we really wanted. But you're not going to land them all. That's just not how recruiting works. I'm not saying he's not going to Maryland yet because he hasn't announced, and who knows what can happen. Crazier things have for sure happened, but it does look like Oregon, Auburn, and Maryland are right now his top three. I'd say Maryland's probably second, but I don't know if we're going to quite get there with him. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.